Hello everybody, it's the Warhipster here, coming at you with another Contrast Plus painting tutorial for Cursed City, and today we are painting the Vyrkos Blood-born. I think that's how you say it. They're really cool models. So what we're going to be doing is, well, jumping right in and painting them. We're going to be doing all three, so if there's anything unique, it'll come up in this tutorial. But what we're going to do is we're going to mostly focus on this one, because it looks like a leader. And they've been primed in grey Seer, and the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to dry brush them. We're going to dry brush them with some Pallid Wych Flesh. And we want to do this quite as a heavy dry brush all over the skin, like this. Now the grey Seer is there to give us a nice cold base to work from, because we don't want these guys to be full of warmth. They're dead. So we're doing this Pallid Wych Flesh now to just add a little bit of definition to all of those muscles and areas in the face, for example. So that when we come to put on our contrast in just a moment, we're going to get really interesting interaction. We're going to get a colder recess with a slightly warmer, very slightly warmer muscle, if that makes any sense. Probably doesn't, but you'll see what I mean in just a second. So as I said, we're using this Pallid Wych Flesh. It's quite a heavy dry brush. You can see already though, it's just nicely picked out all of those muscles on this guy. These ones are a little bit spindly. A little bit more paint. I'm going to take some on my dry brush. Get rid of most of it on some tissue paper. And go back to dry brushing. A little too much on the brush there. That's okay. Brace it a little bit with my hand, spread resting a finger on the hair. And so with that dry brush applied, what we now want to do is we want to make a roughly 4 parts contrast medium to 1 part skeleton horde mix. We want to paint this all over their skin. Now it is quite runny. So you want to be careful that you don't have too much. And if you do have too much, you can just, because it is quite runny, you do have a little bit more time to just lift off any of the excess with your brush. What we don't want to do is like have way too much of this on there. Because we'll lose that kind of nice pale tone that you see we've got just here. So with that done, you should have some skin that looks somewhat like this. So what we're going to do now is going to add a little bit more depth in, but we're also going to start the fade on their legs through to their, I want to say hand, feet, or hoofs, or paws, because they've actually got some little toe beans on there as well. So what we're going to do is going to make a roughly 6 parts contrast medium to 1 part Wyldwood mix. And we're going to use this to do just that. So what we want to do for the feet is we want to add this all the way up to around about that calf muscle. Just like that. Similarly on the back. Just a little bit more in here. Like so. Similarly on this one. Down here. Perfect. Just like that. But what we can also do is wash our brush off and grab a slightly smaller brush and take this exact same mix. And just anywhere where you want to add a little bit more tone and definition, so for example just around here on the arm, you just do a little bit of a recess shade with the Wyldwood. Just like that. Similarly in here in the neck, there's a little bit of a recess just here. Add a little bit of this into the face. Just like this. And so with that done, what we're then going to do is going to use that exact same mix again. 6 parts Wyldwood. No, 6 parts contrast medium to 1 part Wyldwood. 6 parts Wyldwood to 1 part contrast medium would be a disaster. So what we're going to do is we're going to use that exact same mix again. And this time we're going to be much more concentrated around the feet. And we don't want to go up the whole distance. So previously we went up to that calf. This time what we're going to do is just going to stick towards the bottom, going up about 3/4 of the way of what we did before. Just like that. Similarly on the back. And then next up, what we're going to do is we're going to make a 2 parts contrast medium to 1 part Wyldwood mix. I'm going to concentrate this much more towards the bottom. Just around the feet. And with that done, what we then do is take a tiny amount of Shyish Purple. We just use this to darken down our toes. Like that. And so with that done, you should have 3 Vyrkos Blood-born that looks somewhat like this, which is awesome. So what we're going to do now is we're going to work on the fur. And the colours that we're going to be using for this are Aggaros Dunes and Wyldwood. And the first thing we do is we take this Aggaros Dunes on our brush and we just pick out all of the fur. We want to be quite careful now, because we've done such a lovely job on all that skin. It would be a shame to get a nice big blob of Aggaros Dunes all over it. Like that. Then what we do is we wash the brush and grab a small amount of Wyldwood. We just want to add this in little patches over the top, like that. Take a little bit more Wyldwood. There we go. Perfect. So you just want to go over all of the fur like this, and then we'll come back. And so with that done, what we're now going to do is we're going to use some Basilicanum Grey. We're going to use this all over their hair. Now don't worry about doing any highlights. We are just saving that until we've got all of our base coats and shades down. And we'll do all the highlights at the end in one big highlighting party. With that Basilicanum Grey, what we're then going to do is we're going to use some Black Templar, and we're going to use it in 2 areas. First is we're going to use this all over the top of the hair, and the second is that we're going to use this on any of the straps that's holding on the various pieces of armour that they've got on their bodies. And with that done, you should now have a Vyrkos Blood-born that looks like this, as well as like this, as well as like this. So, what we're going to do now is going to use some Iron Warriors. We're going to use this to paint in all of their armour panels. We're not going to do the sword. The sword is going to be slightly brighter. What we want to do is we just want to use this Iron Warriors all over, as I say, their armour panels. So they've all got at least one. This guy's got the most. So he's got his shoulders. He's got this kind of flamboyant gorget. And he's got the chest piece as well. And with that done, what we're now going to do is we're going to use some thinned down Runelord Brass. We're going to use this to paint in the decorative features here on his armor plate. Like that. Similarly there on the back. And we're also going to use this Runelord Brass to paint in the pommel, the guard, and the hilt. Well, I guess it's all the guard, isn't it? Because that bit there's the hilt. Ah, sword terms. And so with that done, what we're now going to do is we're going to use some thinned down iron hand steel to paint in the swords. And so with that done, just to mix it up a little bit, we're just going to show you how to paint the sword on this guy. The colour we're going to be using for this is Iron Hand Steel. And with that done, what we're now going to do is going to shade all of those metallics. Now the colour we're going to make is a roughly 2 parts contrast medium to 1 part Basilicanum Grey. This just to give it a little bit more extra smoothness as it goes on in terms of the application. And what we're also going to do is we're going to use some Fyreslayer Flesh just to add a little bit of rust and grub in to all those metals. So, first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this mix, the contrast medium Basilicanum Grey. We're just going to start applying this over all the silver and the Runelord Brass. Just like this. I'm just going to come around here and finish off these two sections. There we go, like that. Then what we do is we wash our brush off and grab a small amount of Fyreslayer Flesh, just in a couple of places. It's totally up to you. You just want to dab some of this Fyreslayer Flesh in there like this, like that. Now we don't want to use the Fyreslayer Flesh on the sword. We just want to use the Basilicanum Grey mix. Just like that. And with that done, what we're now going to do is we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to be painting in some pinkish designs to the eyes. Now, the colour we're going to be using for this is Volupus Pink. What we want to do is we want to take a small amount of this on our brush. We just basically want to start by painting this Volupus Pink all over his eyes. I'm going to use small amounts because we don't want to use too much at once to massively overwhelm it. Just like that. Then what we're going to do is we're going to draw in a little line going over the top of both the eyes, just down the middle, and one down the middle of his forehead, like that. And then we take a little bit more Volupus Pink. We do the same thing underneath the eyes, down the nose, just like that. Now don't worry if it doesn't look quite like the box art, we are about to do another thing, which is really cool. So with that done, what we do now is we make a roughly 4 parts contrast medium to 1 part Volupus Pink mix. And we just take a small amount of this on our brush, and just, it's a little too much. We want it to be really, really, really thin. And just around this design, you just want to add a little bit of this Volupus Pink, kind of act as a little bit of a glow. Like that. And with that done, our Vyrkos Blood-born should be looking something like this. They look pretty cool already. But what we're going to do is going to take them one step further. I'm going to start doing all of those highlights. And the first colour we're going to be using is Pallid Witch Flesh. And I've already got it prepared here on my brush. And what we're going to do is just going to start picking out all of the sharpest details, including around that Volupus Pink that we've just put in all of the skin. Just like this. And with that done, what we then want to do is take some Karak Stone and use this to highlight the toes. And with that done, what we now want to do is take some Dawnstone and highlight all of the black, the hair and the straps. And with that done, what we now want to do is we want to use some Iron Hand Steel to highlight all of our silver details, including the sword and the armor. And with that done, what we then do is take some Liberator Gold and highlight all of our Runelord Brass areas. Just like that. And next up, we're going to use a tiny dot of Phalanx Yellow to colour in their eyes. Just like that. And next up, we want to use some Screaming Skull to colour in their teeth. As well as to highlight the fur. And with that done, we're going to take some Volupus Pink. We're going to use this to colour in their mouths and their tongues. Just like that. And so with that done, our Vyrkos Blood-born, I know I've been saying that more and more with an accent throughout this, our Vyrkos Blood-born are finished and they look fantastic. All that's left to do is their bases. Now, we've already covered the bases for my Cursed City set in how to paint Jelson Darek and how to paint Captain Imelda Braskov. However, just for posterity's sake, I will show you how to do this large base here because it's quite a large part of the model. So what we're going to do is we're going to use some Basilicanum Grey, and we're going to use this to paint in all of the stone, starting down here. Got some down here. We just want to get this all over. Now, I've been going for Basilicanum Grey because I want them to have quite a cold look. However, you could use Gryph-Charger Grey, or indeed you could paint it exactly the same way you've been painting the rest of your Cursed City set, however you wanted to do it. And next up, we're going to use some Wyldwood. This is going to colour in all of the vines. And with that done, we're then going to take some Skeleton Horde. I'm going to use this to paint in the candle on this side. Like that. We're also going to use it to paint in the skulls. Got one here and one here. We're not painting that candle on top of the skull. It's going to be a different colour. And with that done, what we're then going to do is take some Iron Hand Steel. I'm going to use this to paint in that metal chain. And what looks like a stirrup hanging from it, but oh, it's a shackle. Of course it is. And next up, we're going to take some Blood Angels Red. I'm going to use this to paint in that candle that is on the skull. Like that. And next up, we're going to take some Fyreslayer Flesh. I'm going to use this to shade our shackle. And lastly, I'm going to take some Black Templar. I'm going to use this to paint in the wick of each of the candles. Just like that. And with that done, well, the basics of the colours are all on there. So from this point on, it becomes the same as Jelson Darek and Captain Imelda Braskov's basing structure, in that it's astrogranite debris, followed by some gravel, some static grass, a wash of Basilicanum Grey, and then a dry brush all over of Tyrant's Skull. But of course, you can do the bases however you please. But as I say, If you'd like to see how that's done, you can check out those 2 videos. And so I've finished off those bases in the same style as the rest of my Cursed City set, and the Vyrkos Blood-born look fantastic. It's one of those recipes where you initially go into it thinking, I hope this works, and then it absolutely does. And actually I'm just really pleased with that fade down to the really dark brown. We're using that little bit of Shyish Purple at the end, just kind of really merges with the way it goes from the bone colour down to the dark brown. And that was actually a suggestion from one of my patrons, so thank you very much, Sal, for that. I wouldn't have tried it otherwise. I'd probably use something else, but I think the Shyish Purple is really what finishes it off and makes it really pop and really work. If you enjoyed this video, you love the channel, and you'd like to support me further, like these legends and bosses that you can see on the screen before you, you can do so. Head to patreon.com/warhipster or head to ko-fi.com/warhipster. Don't forget to share it, like it, comment on it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And to make sure you stay up to date, don't forget to click the bell icon. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all very soon in the next one. Happy wargaming.